Echoes of Glory. These are all of the cards that are in the Garrix Reavers and Steelheart's Champions warbands that are universal. So you don't have to buy those if you've already had the Shadespire starter set. So let's get on with it. To quote Bender, let's go already! These are some cards. They're not in cellophane. This was, but I already opened that because... yeah, because I did. I've got one left behind. There are 62 cards. 22 of them are objectives, 20 gambits, and 20 upgrades. Whoopsie. So, this will take a while. Good job we don't have any models to look at. Starting with the objectives, because that's how I do things around here. If you don't like it, comment below. Also, like and share the video, etc, etc. So let's start off. All or nothing. It's worth 5 glory. Score this in the third end phase if you have scored no objective cards this game. If you do, you cannot score any other objective cards. Okay, so if you got completely screwed during your game, then you can score this and gain 5 glory and lose the game. Because your opponent's probably, if you didn't score any objective cards, your opponent probably already has more than 5 glory, so this ain't going to win you anything. Worthless card. It seems like a good idea, it doesn't seem like it's actually going to be useful for anything. If your opponent didn't manage to scrape together 5 glory, yet also you didn't do anything, you A, had the most boring game in the world. This card's already damaged. Probably from... it was the front cards, probably from putting it in the box. You probably had the most boring game in the world, or all of your dice just completely whiffed. And you probably would both have this, if that's how you're going to go. Yeah, I don't rate this card. I don't see it getting a lot of play. Arcane Implosion, 1 glory. Score this immediately if an enemy fighter is taken out of action while attempting to cast a spell. You have no control over that, to my knowledge. Like, maybe you have a modicum of control over it with some of the cards that are in this pack, but to my knowledge, you have no way of actually forcing your opponent to miscast and kill themselves with thing. This is entirely random. Don't rate it. Score this immediately if a friendly fighter takes an enemy fighter out of action with an attack action that is only successful because their target is trapped. It's 2 glory, but A, you are depending upon your attack action failing while someone is cornered. Again, you have little control over that. It's 2 glory for something you don't really have a lot of control over. You can control the positioning, but the dice will still decide if you actually are going to succeed at that. Don't rate it. Dashed Hopes. Score this in an end phase if your warband took at least 1 inspired enemy fighter out of action in the preceding action phase. That's not bad, but there's probably better cards already competing for that spot. It's also not a score immediately. If that was score immediately, it might be worth it. One glory. Score this in an end phase of all surviving friendly fighters, brackets, at least 3, have at least 1 upgrade. Grand Melee. Score this in an end phase if at least 3 enemy fighters were damaged in the preceding action phase. I guess that can allow you to kill them as well. It's an extra glory for doing something you're probably going to do anyway. Yeah. Martyred. Score this immediately if the first fighter taken out of action in this round is a friendly fighter. Hello, Targor. This is an objective card for you. I can see Blood Reavers taking this. Neck and neck. Score this in an end phase if you and an opponent are tied for the same number of glory points, at least one. So I've been saying this in these unboxings of Nightvault stuff so far. There are plenty of objective cards that reward you for the amount of glory that you already have. And this is one of them. This will push you in front of your opponent. So in the third end phase, that could actually get you a win. Interesting card. Is this? I still don't think this is in focus. But it is. It's the reflection, I think. Score this in the third end phase if there are at least 3 surviving friendly fighters and none of them are inspired. So nobody in your warband can be inspired. If a single person is inspired, I don't rate this. I don't see a reason why you would not want to inspire your guys, or purposefully get your inspired guys killed. I don't rate no heroes. Again, this seems to mostly be full of cards that reward you for having a really crap game. Score this in an end phase if you scored at least one objective card in the preceding action phase. Okay, yeah, that's score an objective card, gain an extra glory for doing so. Score this immediately if an opponent discards 3 objective cards in an end phase. You have no control over that. That's a terrible objective. Score this immediately if a friendly fighter's attack action succeeds against an enemy fighter who has 2 or more supporting fighters more than the friendly fighter. So if you are outnumbered, score, yeah, okay, I get it, don't rate it. Combination Strike. Score this in an end phase if you scored at least 2 objective cards in the preceding action phase. So this would be your third card that you are holding on to. So unless they were both score immediatelys, you'd have to have 2 things you can score and then this. Yeah. Score this immediately if all hexes adjacent to a single enemy fighter, other than blocked or incomplete hexes, contain friendly fighters. This is clearly for Nighthaunts. The only warband that can really pull something like that off quite easily, 2 glory. So, yeah. Nighthaunts players, you might be interested in this card. Score this in an end phase if no friendly fighters are out of action and no friendly fighters have wound tokens on their fighter cards. Ah, this is for Stallcast. It's, yeah, Steelheart's Champions, this is a card for them. It's pretty much a must-take if you're going to just, stand at the back of the board and not do anything. Also, if you do that, I hate you, because that's the most boring deck in the world to play against. Who wants to play against that? No one. The only person having fun there is the person playing that deck, playing that warband, which means they don't care about you having fun. Score this in an end phase if your opponent scored no objectives in the preceding action phase. Again, don't have a lot of control over that. Score this in an end phase if all surviving friendly fighters, at least 3, made a move action in the preceding action phase. You might be able to score that with Zarbag's Skits quite easily, with their Scurry. In fact, very easily, probably with Scurry. Singled out. Score this in an end phase if a surviving friendly fighter has 3 or more upgrades. Orcs, probably. Score this immediately if the first fighter taken out of action in this round is an enemy fighter, so that's the opposite to Martyrdom. Again, it depends entirely. Like, Martyrdom you have control over, you can just put a person in position to be able to be taken out. Strong Start requires that you roll good dice and actually take someone out at the start of the game before your opponent takes one of your guys out. So if you don't get the first activation, you might not score it. I prefer Martyrdom. Score this in an end phase if your warband took an enemy leader out of action in this phase, and that leader was the first fighter taken out of action in this game. The odds of this happening are quite low. I think Orcs can pull it off, because, well, I know Orcs can pull it off because I've done it, but you kind of need to, like, proc Cunning but Brutal and Brutal but Cunning off each other. Usually in order to reach your opponent's leader on the first activation of the game, basically, and then smack them. Again, can be done, might be worth 2 glory, but I think there's better cards already out there. in the objectives deck. Total Dominance. This is 6 glory. Score this in the third end phase if there are no surviving enemy fighters and no friendly fighters out of action. This is very rarely going to happen. Witch Slayer. Score this immediately if your leader takes an enemy wizard out of action. Again, depends upon your opponent having a wizard. Not worth it. Quite frankly, most of the objectives do not seem to be worth taking. Comment below if you think that they are. I think most of them are all too situational, or dependent upon random factors or things your opponent is doing to actually make them worth taking. So onto the Gambits and upgrades. Aggressive Defense. Reaction. Play this during an attack action that targets a friendly fighter before the attack roll. You cannot make a defense roll. Interesting. But the target of the attack action cannot be driven back. So, okay. After the attack action, if the friendly fighter survives, immediately make an attack action with that fighter that targets their attacker. So you're basically planting your feet, standing your ground. If you get hurt, you get hurt. But then you get to smack them back. You're not guaranteed to take damage, because they might whiff their attack. But frankly, that's unlikely. Yeah, it's a ploy, so it's an interesting card. You might want to build around it. Center of Attention. This has got a picture of a fanatic on it. That tells me everything I need to know already. Choose a fighter and push all other fighters that are within 2 hexes of that fighter up to 1 hex, so that they are closer to that fighter in an order you choose. If a fighter cannot be pushed in this way, do not push them. It's like, oh hey, you all moved away from my fanatic? Well, now you're all next to him. He's gonna go and smack you all about. Yeah, also, if you've got, there's a card in Night Vault core set. There's a card in the Night Vault core set which lets you attack everyone adjacent to your spellcaster and do a damage on them. So yeah, there's a lot of... Yeah, this is an interesting card. Also, you can just use this to cluster your goblins together so that you can trigger Scurry on all of them in the next turn. Because it's all other fighters, friendly or enemy, doesn't matter. Also, it doesn't matter if it's an enemy fighter or your fighter that you're choosing. You know, just saying, hey everyone, move here. It's actually a pretty good card. I quite like it. This good card over here. If you have anything that does AoE damage, Center of Attention, good card. Damning Pact. Choose a friendly wizard. They suffer 1 damage. The first time they attempt to cast a spell before the next power step, any fighter damaged by that spell suffers 1 additional damage. Okay, there is that Lightning Bolt spell in Cursebreakers. I think it's one of the Cursebreakers cards, where you scatter it and it does 1 damage to everyone along the chain. If you've used Damning Pact, that's then doing 2 damage to everyone along the chain. This is a good card for a spell-based deck. You should take this. Reaction. Play this after an attack action that targets a friendly fighter and fails. You can push the target up to 2 hexes. Okay, yeah, that's interesting. Ghoulish Pact. Another pact. Choose a friendly fighter and an upgrade card from your hand that you can apply to that fighter. That fighter suffers 1 damage. If they survive, apply the upgrade to that fighter. This is a good card. You do not need a glory in order to get your first upgrade out. This is a very good card. Especially for corn people, or anyone that can heal reliably, which again I suspect Trogoth in the upcoming warband will be able to. Reaction. Play this when an enemy fighter adjacent to a friendly fighter casts a spell before the spell is resolved. Roll a defense dice. On a roll of shield or crit, that spell is not cast. So, yeah, you put this on one of your fighters, and then they work as a walking null zone. Pretty good. Again, assuming that your opponent even has a wizard. Choose 1 persisting ploy. That ploy is discarded. Okay. I don't know of many ploys that actually persist so far, but I'm going to guess there's going to be a lot more in this season than there previously were. Because, you know, a lot of them... Well, no, it says ploy and not spell, so you can't use that to get rid of a spell that's in power. Sphere of Ulgu. Gambit spell. It needs 1 swirl. If this spell is cast, attack actions in the next activation have -1 dice to a minimum of 1. Debuff everyone's attacks for a turn in the next activation. That's not a bad spell. It's a nice little buff spell. It's only requires 1 success. So on a level 2 wizard, you've got a good chance of getting it. Like a 50% chance of getting it-ish. I don't know the maths. Tell me the maths in the comments. I like this art. It's an engine rigger going to his doom. He's going to pop. His balloon's going to pop and he's going to go all over the place. Anyway. Play this during a friendly fighter's attack action in which the target fighter is trapped and is in an edge hex and or adjacent to a blocked hex. The target fighter suffers 1 damage. So this is super situational. A, the target has to be trapped. B, the thing they have to be trapped against is actual terrain. It can't be against other fighters. And then it does an extra damage. You could also just, you know, use trap or pit trap or something like that. There's plenty of other cards that add an extra damage onto the end of an attack. But, you know, that's another one that does it. Enemy fighters cannot provide support during the first attack action in the next activation. Okay, yeah, that's pretty straightforward. I like it. If there are any crits in an attack roll for this fighter's attack action, resolve that attack action as if it had cleave. So that's cleave, but conditional. I don't rate it that much. Reaction. After this fighter's attack action that targets an adjacent enemy fighter and fails, roll an attack dice. On a hammer or crit, that enemy fighter suffers 1 damage. So 50% chance to do a damage even if you screw up. +1 damage to this fighter's attack actions that target a fighter with a wounds characteristic of 4 or more. There's not a lot of characters that have a wounds characteristic of 4 or more, so again, this is pretty situational. Enchanted Greaves. This fighter treats lethal hexes as normal hexes. But only one of your fighters, so... meh. Nighthaunts get this for free. Everyone else can get it for 1 glory on one of their fighters. And it, again, we'll probably assume that at least you chose a lethal board, otherwise why would you even put this in your deck, because there's no guarantee that it will come up. Nullstone Sword, range 1, 3 hammers, 2 damage. You can reroll 1 dice if the target is a wizard, just like all the other Nullstone weapons. Potion of Constitution. I've been liking the potion so far, so let's see. Reaction. During an attack action or gambit that will damage this fighter, discard this card, reduce the damage suffered by 1 to a minimum of 1. It's like an arcane shield, but for only 1 attack action or gambit, which will include spells. So that's not too bad. Slumbering Key. It's our first key I've seen so far in this season. If this fighter is not out of action in the 3rd end phase, gain 1 glory point. Seems pretty easy to score, to be honest. Especially on Stallcast, for example. Swordbreaker. Range 1, 3 hammers, 2 damage. On a critical hit, you can choose one of the target fighter's upgrades that confers an attack action. That card is discarded. Pretty situational. Oh, we've got a Tome. Tome of Warfare. Choose this fighter or an adjacent friendly fighter. Their next attack action has +1 dice. I quite like that one. It's pretty good. Also, these tomes can go on anyone. They don't have to be wizards. Touch of Death. Touch of Death. Range 1, 1 hammer, 3 damage. So basically a 50-50 chance to pull it off. Place a charge token next to any fighter damaged by this attack action. Oh, okay. If you don't kill them, they can't do anything. for the rest of that phase, that's pretty good. It's a 50-50 chance that you pull it off, and then your opponent has to defend against it. So, not too shabby, considering that it's got that charge action application on the end of it as well. The first time a fighter would make a move action in the next activation, their player instead scatters X from the hex that fighter occupies, and pushes the fighter along the chain to the end hex. X is the fighter's move characteristic. If the fighter cannot be pushed into a hex, the push ends in the last hex in the chain they can occupy. Place a move token next to that fighter. So this means, oh hey, whoever you're moving next activation, they're going in a random direction. So it's potentially walking through a lethal hex. Because, well, they can walk around the lethal hex because the person moving them gets to choose. But it can basically go, oh, you don't want to move someone next activation. Is what that really means. It's like, next activation, you don't want to move someone. But, yeah. It's an interesting one. You're probably not going to kill anyone with it, but you're probably going to stop someone from moving anybody at all in that activation. Reaction. Play this after an attack action that targets a friendly fighter and fails. Remove up to 1 wound token from that fighter's fighter card. So if someone fails to hit you, you get a wound back. Not bad. Again, I suspect this will be useful on the Troggoth, who will probably have quite high defense and be able to regenerate wounds. Just a guess. I don't have any knowledge on that. It's just how I would design a Troggoth. Haymaker. +2 dice for the first attack action made by a friendly fighter in the next activation. You cannot make defense rolls for that fighter. The latter effect persists until that fighter is out of action or the end of the round, whichever happens first. Okay, so you put down your weapon and then you punch someone more effectively than when you were using your weapon. Not paying any attention to that. Oh, wait, no. You just go all out with your weapon attack and then you can't defend anymore. However, you can use that revoke card to get rid of the effect of this immediately after using it. So revoke and Haymaker in the same deck. And revoke may just come in useful on its own. Choose an objective token. Any fighter in the same hex as that token suffers 1 damage. That could be useful for taking like a random petitioner off an objective. Choose 2 adjacent friendly fighters who each have at least 1 upgrade that could be applied to the other fighter. Take an upgrade from each fighter and apply it to the other fighter. Each fighter must be eligible for that upgrade. Okay, well, I guess if you've got someone that really wants to use that demonic weapon, and they also have, like, something boring equipped that's not going to help them in this next attack, you play that, and then give them the demonic weapon, and then they go smack. Without having to move someone, but it does depend that they're stood next to each other. It's, again, very situational. Choose a friendly fighter that is holding an objective. That fighter becomes inspired. That's just useful. It's not a bad card. It completely ignores the normal inspiration mechanics. So if you've got a hard to pull off inspiration mechanic, Regal Vision seems pretty good for you. Rend the Earth. It's a spell, 2 lightning bolts. If this spell is cast, all fighters adjacent to the caster suffer 1 damage. So, yeah, center of attention, then Rend the Earth. Hey, you've all taken 1 damage now. Sphere of Hish. Hish. It's just Hish, isn't it? It's a snake with a lisp. Gambit spell, 2 lightning bolts. If this spell is cast, attack actions in the next activation have +1 dice. Buff your attacks. It's 2 lightning bolts, so it's not going to be easy to pull off. Like 25% of the time it'll work. Unless you have ways to get bonus lightning bolts, like an innate lightning bolt. Choose a lethal hex. Roll an attack dice for each fighter in or adjacent to that hex. On a roll of hammer or crit, the fighter being rolled for suffers 1 damage. I'll do that one again. Choose a lethal hex. Roll an attack dice for each fighter in or adjacent to that hex. On a roll of hammer or crit, the fighter being rolled for suffers 1 damage. Again, You only know there's going to be lethal hexes if you've taken a board tile that's going to have lethal hexes on it, so that might affect your guys just as much as it affects the enemy guys, because unlike, it's not saying that you are moving through a lethal hex, or as if it's a lethal hex, Nighthaunt would still be affected by that damage, so yeah. Vertigo. Good card art. I like it. Play this during an action or gambit that uses the scatter token. After the scatter token is placed, but before any dice are rolled, choose how the scatter token is oriented. You already choose how the scatter token is oriented when you place it down, so you want to use this when your opponent places the scatter token. So they place it down, and then you go, actually, no, it's facing this other way. Because that's no use to you, because it's before the dice are rolled. Champion's Fortitude. You can reroll 1 defense dice each time you make a defense roll for this fighter. Just handy. When this fighter is adjacent to 2 or more friendly fighters, this fighter has +1 defense. Also handy. Again, mostly useful probably on Steel Hearts champions who are going to just be in a blob, going, no, we're not going to do anything. While this fighter is adjacent to no fighters, this fighter has +1 defense. No fighters at all. That means that if you are actually next to someone to attack them, this doesn't come into play. So this only goes on to play on people like, say, the Fast Riders, who are going to be trying to stay away from the enemy, but also staying alive. -1 wound to a minimum of 1. Adjacent enemy fighters' attack actions have -1 dice to a minimum of 1, because punching someone wearing spiky armor hurts. Reaction. During an enemy fighter's attack action that takes this fighter out of action, before removing them from the battlefield, all adjacent enemy fighters suffer 1 damage. So you explode. Put this on some Brimstone Horrors with the other one. Because then the Brimstone Horrors explode, causing 1 damage to everyone nearby, and the Mirror Spite then does the same thing. I don't know if you can actually stack them up like that. Comment below if you can. Or if you can't. Nullstone Darts. Range 3, 3 swords, 1 damage. Guess what? It's a Nullstone thing. You can reroll 1 dice in the attack roll if the target is a wizard. Potion of Grace. Reaction. After a move token is placed next to this fighter, discard this card to remove that token. Note that's a move token, not a charge token. But it does mean that you can, say, move again, or then charge again, charge next turn. You can say you can move then charge, move then move. That's the only relevance it has. But requires 2 actions to double your movement. Ready for the fight. Reaction. After an enemy fighter's move action that is part of a charge action, you can push this fighter up to 2 hexes. This push must bring them adjacent to the enemy fighter. So again, that's... when can you push them? It's after the move action part. So again, that's being able to bundle on someone and give a supporting attack, supporting defense, essentially, to one of your guys. So there was a card like that. I think it was either in Zarbak's Gits or Eyes of the Nine. I think it was Zarbak's Gits. That was similar. But let you move 3, I think it was. Tome of Glories. Action. If this fighter is holding an objective, gain 1 glory point. Place a charge token next to this fighter. So you can only do this once per phase, but you can go, oh, I do an action and now I have a glory. Because I don't think there's many ways to remove a charge token unless you die and come back. Which might be handy in a Sepulchral Guard type deck, where you can, or Spiteclaw Swarm, where the guy dies but he still has this upgrade on him. You take all of his tokens off, then you bring him back, and he moves and stands on objective, and you can do this again. But it's pretty hard because this is an action. So maybe not. Seeking Blade. Rolls of dodge aren't successful. It's an attack. Range 1, 2 hammers, 1 damage. Rolls of dodge aren't successes in defense rolls for targets this attack action. As it's a homing sword. Like a homing missile. So there we go. The Gambits and upgrades seem far more worth it than the objectives do. I don't rate many of the objectives in this pack, but there's some okay-ish, pretty good cards. I like Centre of Attention. If you've got Zarbag skits, you probably want Centre of Attention. If you've got anyone, if you use a warband that does lots of AoE type damage, Centre of Attention. Ghoulish Pact, probably going to be amazing. Lets you get that first upgrade out. For example, in the first power phase, you can get an upgrade out before you've even taken a turn to do anything. That's going to be amazing. I can see Magor's Fiends taking this, like as a must-have. Maybe even the Blood Reavers. Stick it on Sake, play it on Sake, get him something really nasty out, and just go in there and murder someone on turn 1. Get yourself +1 damage upgrade out there straight away on the first turn. Before even your first activation, if you go second. Benefit to going second right there. So, yeah, and then also stick Martyrdom. Yeah, Martyrdom's pretty good. Yeah. There's some good cards in here. In this Echoes of Glory pack. 8 quid, I think it was. So, not bad. £8 for all of these cards, of which some of them are useful. You can discuss below how useful in the comments. Also, talk about it on the Warhammer Underworlds subreddit. It's a good source for all of your information about Warhammer Underworlds, and discussion on there about what cards are good, how to build decks. I'm sure all of these are probably already up on Warhammer Underworlds DB, so you can look at them in more detail. But yeah, here's a fan out of the card, because there's no 360 video in this unboxing, because it's just cards. So there you go. I'm going to probably use 1 or 2 of these, but I don't know. I'll wait for the community to decide what's good, because I don't really know. I just have my own first impressions. But yeah, my first impressions are the objectives aren't great, but the Gambits and upgrades seem pretty good. And the question is, are they better than the stuff that was already out? And I don't know, to be honest. I can't remember every single card that's already out. It's too many. So there we go. If you liked this video, please click that like button. Share this in all of your social medias. There's a share button you can press to do that as well. You can also click on the affiliate links if you want to buy this stuff that are down in the doobly-doo. It helps out the channel very much so if you do that. And comment below with which cards you think were good from this set, and what kind of combinations you can think up, because I'm interested in all of that stuff. See if you can make Sepulchral Guard good, because I want to make Sepulchral Guard good. Maybe this card will let you. Who knows? Yeah, there we go. So you can subscribe to the channel over there. There's my Patreon there for supporting my painting tutorials. You can check that out at that link. There's another video you can watch there. That'll be interesting. I don't know what it'll be. YouTube decides. And my social medias are there, where you can @me on stuff. So there you go. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.